the Jupiter retrograde, which happens once a year. So it enters a new sign each year and then it retrogrades. So Jupiter is currently in Cancer. It moved in there back in June. And it will be stationing retrograde at 25 degrees of Cancer. So again, it almost got out. It's like, just kidding. Instead of moving into the new sign, it's going to retrograde, move through those degrees again. And then by the time we get to next June, it will actually move into Leo. So 25 degrees of Cancer on 11/11, make a wish, at 11:41 a.m. Eastern Time. This is a review period of sorts, specifically for Jupiter. This is big on reflection. So we're reflecting to heal. That's the shorthand. Jupiter represents expansion, personal development, good fortune, luck. And when Jupiter is retrograde, which happens for a few months, once a year, every year, these are opportunities to find new seeds of wisdom. So we're kind of combing back. Okay, what are the things that I've been learning? What have I missed from where I have grown in this area of my life? So in this Cancerian area of my chart, is there something I've missed? There's something that I overlooked that's really going to help me to get the wisdom that I need for this year-long chapter of my life. Given that Jupiter is about expansion and we're in a retrograde, we may find that some of that growth either reverses a little bit or just happens at a slower pace because Jupiter is not optimized. We're not just moving forward, learning a bunch of things and having these opportunities presented to us. That the dial may be turned down and may be slowed a little bit. Doesn't mean we're not still growing, because we're going to grow through the wisdom that we receive, which is very important. And then similar, we may find that like our gusto, like our energy, our excitement, our optimism in some ways might be slightly minimized. So having a transit like this is pretty notable because we can really take Jupiter for granted. It just floating through, expanding, allowing us to grow, allowing us to receive, and all of a sudden it's retrograde and we're having to check in on what that's meant or see it, dampered just a little bit. When this is happening in Cancer, we will anticipate the call to action for our emotional security. So Cancer as the cardinal water sign, very sensitive, ruled by the moon. So where are we at with that? Where are we at with expanding, understanding? I wouldn't say fortifying because it's not very much a Jupiter vibe, but really getting to know what makes us feel emotionally safe. That's like part of one of the lessons that we are learning this year into next year. Also, it could be revisiting our ancestral lineage or wounds. So what is coming up when I'm doing this review? What is coming out about my origin story? About what has been passed down? Cancer is thought to carry the ancestry or ancestral wounds of the family. So anybody with Cancer placements, you could have some particular attachment to things in the past or family origin or difficulty in letting certain things go. And also, on the hopefully very positive side, that we have some intuitive insights coming through. So now when we're reflecting, when we're slowing down a little bit on just the growth trajectory, so we've been hopefully growing in our intuition by having Jupiter in Cancer, but checking in on that. All right, well, what are the reflections that came through? What are the messages that came through? How is my skill development going as far as a variety of different divination tools, as far as listening to myself and reinforcing my boundaries? Again, a weird dichotomy because Jupiter doesn't really care about boundaries, but Cancer needs the boundaries. And so maybe what we're doing is we're helping, growing, we're building and supporting so that we can maintain that security, protecting ourselves, but not limiting ourselves. Again, that's the main difference. So this, of course, is going to be layered into the Cancerian area of your chart. as well. Feel free to start putting those in the chat as I rattle through our timeline. So the full Jupiter retrograde timeline for 2025 into 2026 is the pre-shadow, which started at 15 degrees of Cancer on August 17th. So this is a very, very long pre-shadow period. As we were talking about with the Mercury retrograde, we can think about it as a ramp. So if the Mercury retrograde ramps like this, so over the course of maybe a couple weeks, Jupiter is much more like this. It is a slower ascent to get to the top for the actual retrograde, and then a slower descent down. Jupiter stations retrograde on 11/11, November 11th, at 25 degrees of Cancer. So that process moved us 10 degrees of Cancer over the course of September, October, November, 3 months. So it's 3 months of lead time to get us there. And then Jupiter stations direct at that 15 degrees of Cancer on March 10th, 2026. And then, so we're kind of doing that's a little bit longer than 3 months, but then we do another 3-month post shadow, which ends at 25 degrees of Cancer on June 6th, 2026. Later that month, at the end of June of next year, it will move through those last few degrees and it will enter Leo to start our next annual cycle. So for argument's sake, we've done the bulk of the work of Jupiter in Cancer already. And this process is it's tossing us back 10 degrees, having us just check our work, check what we've learned, check how we've grown, check what our boundaries or lack of boundaries are. And then we'll just be finishing those last few degrees really in the month of June next year. Cancer is 11th house for me. So this is going to be looking at those friendships, networking, for work or personal, social media. So your relationship with social media, when we're talking about Cancer, or considering for all of the above, how do those relationships make you feel safe? What do they activate or not activate with your emotions? What intuitive information have you gained? Are you getting a little bit better at reading people, like whether they would make a good friend or not, whether they could be friends that help to develop you as a person? Are they helping you grow? Are they supporting you? If they're not, probably not a good fit. And we're much more aware of that now. Cancer starts in 10th, but is mostly in the 11th. So Caitlin, most of that will apply to you as well. But for the bit that is in the 10th house, that likely, I'm guessing based on here, will not fall into the retrograde, because if that's at the beginning and we're talking about 15, so that's what you want to check. So 15 to 25 degrees is where the retrograde is happening. So it may not actually be in the 10th house for you, depending on where your 11th house starts. But for anyone listening where it is falling in your 10th house, this is looking at your career. So how have you grown in your career? How have you developed emotional safety or not in your career? Are you more in touch with your sense of self, your boundaries, your relationships, your spirituality within your career, within your reputation? Have you built a business or a career or anything that is more in this space or not? Cancer is also known for being the caretaker as well. So are you really expanding your role, your reputation as a caretaker? 3rd and 4th, 10 degrees. 3rd to 25, 4th looks like half. Okay, 3rd and 4th house is going to be looking at reflecting on what you have already learned and how you've already expanded through your communication and that origin story, that family. So 4th house in some ways has some similar themes to that of Cancer. On the 3rd house side, how have I integrated my intuition? How have I integrated compassion, sensitivity, caretaking, thinking of other people, etc., into how I am talking to people. How am I taking up space in my communication with other people? Fourth house, it's the family. How have I gained wisdom about my personal origin story, about my ancestry, about my parents or my caretakers? How have I developed from like kind of the arc of my whole life, but specifically again with this transit, we're looking at the natal chart in a way, but we're also looking at within this last year. So with all this, just to clarify that, we're thinking about within this last year, how have I grown in those spaces? How have I gained wisdom within those spaces? Has anything presented itself as far as your house, your living situation? Have you moved? Have you renovated? Have you upscaled? Have you redesigned? Have you had some aha moments about maybe where you want to live? Do you identify with where you are now as being home? How do you define a home? So these are ideas that could come up in the retrograde portion of this year-long transit. As a last example, just because it's a different area of the chart, which we haven't really touched, I have Cancer in my first house. So first house is looking at appearance. So the body, like how the body looks, as well as identity. So what I could be reflecting on is how have I grown or shaped like my brand, like for my business? How am I changing how I identify? Have I adjusted any of my titles? Have I learned anything about myself? Very deep, very explorative. So, what have I learned about myself as a person, about who I am, about who I want to be, about how I'm explaining that to other people? What have I learned about my intuition? Have I uncovered any new gifts? Have I become more emotional, more attuned to my emotions, and being able to express them and integrate those into my identity and feel more comfortable with that? So as I'm saying all this, I recognize the ways I have done all these things, which is helpful and a nice checkpoint. Because reminder, we're at 25 degrees of Cancer at this point. So we have done most of the work. We're doing a extended check-in. We are revisiting. We are healing up whatever needs healing, whatever needs correction. We'll move through that, start expanding a little bit more, keep growing, and then we'll have our final push before moving out.